Looking for affordable Christmas decorations that still look amazing? In today's video, I'm sharing several of my favorite Christmas decorating projects that can be made mostly from paper. From stunning stars and snowflakes to festive holiday displays, these projects are inexpensive, beginner-friendly, and perfect for decorating your home for Christmas. Let's start with one of my favorite paper Christmas decorations. This project may look complicated, but it's not. It's super easy. Trust me, if you can fold paper, you can make this project. Today I'm going to walk you through how to make this 5-point star. This is a simple, relaxing project that you can make easily and still have it look impressive. Also, be sure to stick around until the end of the video where I go over some tips and tricks that I've learned while making this project. So, let's jump in. Okay, so let's talk about the supplies that we need for this craft. You're going to need 5 sheets of paper. Ideally, you want them to be the same color, so I've got this red and white polka dot happening. And I'm using 12 by 12 sheets of cardstock, but you can use any size of square paper that you have. You can cut an 8.5 by 11 down to an 8.5 square, or you can even use origami paper, whatever kind of paper you'd like. But for the example I'll be doing, I'm going to be using 12 by 12 sheets of cardstock. You're going to need glue. I'm using my glue gun because I'm finding that the 12 by 12 cardstock is a bit thicker than what the normal 8.5 by 11 that I use for crafting, and my craft glue doesn't work as well. So if you're just using thinner paper, your craft glue should work, but I'm going to pull out my big gun and use my glue gun today. And then also what you're going to need is, if you want to hang this on your wall, you'll need a needle and thread or some yarn or however you'd like that to go. So those are the supplies that we need. All right, it's time to get this project started. The first thing that you want to do is you want to flip your paper over so that the non-color side, or the side with the design that you don't want, is facing inwards. And we're going to fold this in half, sort of like we would be making a paper airplane. And I'm just going to fold this down the half center, and we're folding this on a diagonal so that it's like a triangle. And if you didn't fold it 100% perfectly, don't worry about it. This is a craft. It doesn't need to be perfect. So we're going to open this up now, and we're going to fold the inward from the other corner that wasn't folded, and we're going to fold it right to the center line that we previously folded. And we're going to do this on both sides. So like we're making a huge paper airplane, or an unsuccessful paper airplane, however you want to call it. And so we're going to fold this like so. So now we have a nice diamond shape, and we're going to fold our triangle in here that we have to a flap, and we're just going to fold this in and down. So now we have another triangle, and we're going to grab these corners. I'm just going to refold this piece because it's not totally straight here. We're going to refold this corner inwards to this point here, like so, and squish it down. Now, depending on how thick your cardstock is, this fold might be difficult. The paper that I'm using right now isn't too bad. This is probably about 60-pound cardstock. I was using some 80 or 120-pound cardstock earlier, and it was very difficult to fold. So you want to make sure that you're folding this here straight into this kind of center part. And if it's not 100% perfect, don't worry about it. You're not going to see that in perfection later. So we're going to fold it like this. Now we have a diamond shape. So what I need to do next is I need to fold my remaining 4 pieces so that they're just the same as this, and then we'll start to assemble this. If you're folding along with me, let me know what color you selected for your project. I always love to know how everyone makes their projects. Be sure to share that in the comments below. And while you're folding your paper, it's a good idea to start heating your glue gun so that we can have that ready once all of our pages are folded. Now that we've got all of our pages folded, we need to glue them into a diamond like so. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put 2 dabs of glue into the center here onto this little diamond inside of our folds. Now we don't need a lot of glue, just a good dab, and then fold these pieces down like so. Now I don't need to hold these in place. It's okay that it's going to pop open like this because that's how we're going to continue with our next section. So I'm going to quickly glue all of my diamonds shut here so that they all are able to continue on to the next step. And this is a very quick process. Okay, now that all of our pages are folded into diamonds, we're actually going to switch them from a diamond into a triangle. So we're going to fold them into sort of a right angle triangle like so. So we're going to do that for all 5 of them so that they are all nice and ready to be used. I like to prepare them into the triangles before I start gluing, just so that I can do the next process very quickly. Now each triangle is going to get glued onto the next one, and we're going to apply glue in this area. What I recommend though is that when you're gluing, that you kind of do the glue in a triangular area as opposed to just a dab. That will help the corners or the edges here get glued nicely so that your star is not sort of opening up later when we are having them on display. So I'm just going to put glue here like so. And I'm going to put the next triangle right on top. And since they're all the same, I just line up the corners and my next one is on. And I'm going to repeat this for all of my pieces. Now, once all 5 pieces are glued together, all we need to do is add one more piece of application of glue here. And now we're going to spread this open like so and glue these 2 sides together. And now we have our star completed. And there's our star. I've got a better angle of that in just a second. And hey, if you love simple crafts like this, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. I also have a weekly newsletter where I share tips and tricks for other crafts, as well as you get access to my templates. I've left a link for that below, so be sure to click on it so that you can hang out with other crafters like us. And finally, if you want to hang this on your wall, all you need to do is grab a needle and poke it through the paper and pull the thread through. And then tie it off. Alright, and there we have it. We've successfully created our 5-point star. So I hope you've enjoyed that craft. I just wanted to quickly talk to you about some things that I learned while making this craft. And so I'm going to start to point it out here with this first star that I made. So this is the 5-point star that I initially made, and I picked yellow for this one because I didn't actually have a lot of cardstock that's the same color. So I wanted the star to sort of look nice and symmetric, and since it's got 5 points, I can't go like yellow, blue, yellow, blue, yellow, because there would be yellow and yellow here, right? And so I struggled finding 5 pieces of cardstock that were the same color. And so you might say, Catherine, but you could just do 6 points and then alternate 3 pieces of paper. It might be easier to find 3 sheets of paper. And that's true. So I did that. I said, I made this star here, and this is my 6-point star. And I'm going to hold this here for you so that you can see it. But the problem that I found with the 6-point star is that even though I'm alternating colors and it looks beautiful all around, you'll notice that it kind of gets squished down here at the bottom, and the shape of the center of the star isn't perfect anymore. And I find that's just because of the amount of pieces of paper that you have and gravity. So it's kind of deforming the bottom of the star. So I don't really like the way that that looks. I like the color combination, but I don't like its squishiness down here. So then you might say, Catherine, why not just use 4 sheets of paper? Cool, let's do that. So I did 4 sheets of paper, and I made this star. And I made this on smaller paper because I was getting tired of folding all the big sheets. But you'll notice here with this one, these ones are starting to pull at these edges. And the problem is that when you do a 4-point star with this method, you're pulling the sort of the diamonds and the triangles to their sort of maximum, and they're not going to be holding as great. So if you want to do a 4-point star, I recommend you watch the video that I've left linked here, where I teach you how to make an 8-point star and only make half of the star. And then you have a 4-point star that you can use instead of using 4 pieces of paper, and then you could just use 1 for that. So I wanted to talk about that. Also, when I was making these stars, so this one here is made out of like 80 or 100 pound cardstock, and this stuff is really thick. These points are really strong and hard, so if you're hanging this up on a wall, be sure that you, or like sort of hanging it from a ceiling, be sure that you're just mindful of how high these are so that people aren't poking their eyes out with them. And then obviously bigger paper means a bigger star. So this is an 8.5 by 11, and that's a 12 by 12, or I guess this technically is 8.5 by 8.5 because I cut it down. And then you've got 12 by 12, and then we've got an even smaller one. I've got running with hands here, and then you've got a 6 by 6. So bigger star, bigger paper, bigger star. So those are sort of your different options that I've made. So that's the project that we made today. I hope you've enjoyed that. And there you have it. That's how we made our 5-point star. I hope you've enjoyed this craft as much as I have. If you did enjoy this craft, be sure to give me a thumbs up and comment below if you did make it. Let me know how it turned out. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And I hope to see you at the next craft. Happy crafting. Believe it or not, you only need 2 sheets of paper to make this beautiful 3D Christmas star. It's a lot easier than you think. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to make this 8-point Christmas star, step by step. If you're new here, I'm Catherine from Catherine Learns Stuff, where I help busy moms find a few moments to make relaxing creative crafts in the time that they have for themselves. If you like simple creative crafts, be sure to hit the subscribe button so that you can get notified about my next project. So let's jump in. Let's start with supplies. You'll need 2 sheets of cardstock, or paper if you prefer. Ideally, you want squares, but if you don't have squares, you can easily trim it down. I'm using 12 by 12 cardstock today. The bigger the paper, the bigger the star, and if you don't have 12 by 12 and you only have 8.5 by 11, you can trim it down to an 8.5 inch square. You'll also need some glue. I'm using both craft glue and a hot glue gun. You can absolutely get away with just a hot glue gun, but I find crafting glue doesn't always work well on the later steps. We will need some scissors for precision cutting, because we always do. And finally, if you want to hang this star, you'll need some yarn or thread and a large needle. Everything I'm using today, the cardstock, the glue, the scissors, the tools, is linked for you in the description of the video below so you can check them out. Alright, so now that we've got our supplies sorted out, it's time to start making this star. The first thing we need to do is grab 1 sheet of our paper to get this project started. When we're working on this design, you want to make sure that you have the design facing downwards or out on the design, so all of your folds will be in onto the white side of the page. If your page has 2 colors on it, you want to make sure that the same design is on the outside of both of the pages on the folds. The first thing that we're going to do is simply fold it in half along the corners so that it's in a diagonal. And we're going to do 4 folds in total on this page, and they're all very simple. We do 1 fold along the center on the diagonal and then again in the other direction. And once we have those, we will then fold the page in half along to make it into a rectangle, and then we'll fold it in the other direction as well. Once you're done all of your folds, you should have 8 triangular pieces inside of your cardstock. Now it's time to pull out our scissors and start cutting. You want to cut in the middle of the straight edge towards the center. This is along a fold line, but you're only cutting halfway up. Now you don't need to measure this. You can eyeball it if you want, but if you are going to measure it and you're using 12 by 12 paper, you're going to need to measure 3 inches from the edge. Now, if you're just eyeballing it like I do and you cut too far, that's not a problem. And if you don't cut far enough, when you're folding your paper later, you'll notice that and you can adjust the cut length. Once all 4 sides are cut, so you're gonna have a cut on each straight side of your square, it's time to start folding. You're going to fold the outer edge of the cut sheet into the center of your point fold, and you're going to repeat this on all 8 sides of this square now that you've got, and each point is going to turn into a tip, and we just keep doing that folding until we've made it all the way around the square. Okay, so now the hard work is done. It's time to pull out our glue and get a little bit messy. This part is fairly simple, but you just want to take some special care when you're doing this. Apply glue to one side of the folded point and stick the other side on top of it. With the 12 by 12 cardstock being so long, I find that the tip of the star doesn't close all the way after I've applied glue, so I like to put my pen inside and hold it gently against the paper while I hold the other side with my hand to allow the glue to dry. Since I'm using a quick dry glue, this dries pretty quickly and I don't have to hold it for very long. Now you're going to repeat this for the remaining 3 sides. I just want to point out that when you are gluing these tips together, if you press the fold all the way together so the bottom fold touches the top corner fold, your star won't lie flat on the tabletop or against your wall. It's going to form a bit of a dome, and that's okay. You can have it like that. It'll still work when you attach it to your other star later, but if you don't want it to be as domed, you can make the star flatter by not pushing the corners together when you're gluing this. Hooray! We finished our first star. If you want to stop here and have only a 4-point star, then you're done. All you need to do is find a place to put this on your wall. But if you want to keep going and make a big 8-point star with me, let's keep moving. Let me know, are you going to stop at a 4-point star, or are you going to go all the way to make an 8-point star? Let me know in the comments below. Now that we've got 1 star done, time to pull out our second piece of paper and finish this project off. Okay, now that we have both our star pieces completed, we have a few final things to do. You'll notice here on this one that the point isn't really pointy, it's kind of bent out of its shape. So you just want to push the corners back into place so that you have a point of a star. And since we've already folded it here in these spots, it's just a simple push down with your fingers and then it'll be ready to go. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is glue this together. But now that I've placed this like this, it's given me an idea. So hold on to that thought. We're going to come back to this new idea that I've got in just a second. But first we're gonna get back to gluing this. So the idea is the star is gonna look like this backwards, right? So we're gonna have it like this. And one side will look like this, and the other side is gonna look like this. Basically the same thing. So all you need to do is you need to put some pieces of glue, some dabs of glue here. And this is where I use my glue gun because I find that the glue gun dries faster and it'll hold it better. Is if I use my crafting glue, it's going to slip and slide and not seal the way that I want to. Now that my glue gun's hot, I'm just gonna put 4 dabs of glue. Now you can like do a straight line if you want, but I'm just doing 4 dabs of glue. My glue is currently not the greatest and it leaks anyways, so I'm gonna have lines in between as it is. So now I'm going to make sure my star is aligned sort of 45 degrees angle, and I'm just gonna squish this together. Now there is a bit of a bow in the design here, and that's okay. It's just going to hold this together. And we're just going to hold this together while the glue dries, and that's going to be the star. So while this is drying, let's go back to the idea that I just had. Okay, so if you know me, you know I like to go overboard sometimes, and I had this great idea while we were making the blue star. What if we did it like crazy? Because look how these beautifully look when they're like this, but what if we did 2 and 2 and then put it together like a super multi-star? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to make a super multi-star. My glue gun is hot, so I'm going to glue on top this way for 2 of these, and then I'm going to glue them together that way as well. So what am I doing here? I'm going to put glue kind of in these corners here, these edges, so that it can stick to the outer edge of my other snowflake star. And we're just going to pop this on here like so. And we're going to do the same thing with this one here. How am I doing this? Put this here. And now we're going to glue these 2 bad boys together. So we're gonna have it like megastar. So bear with me. We're gonna do the same thing again. We're gonna put more glue on the inside here. And we're going to put this on a 45-degree angle. And now we've got a mega star. So we're gonna change our angle in just a second and take a look at this. I think this is gonna look awesome. And this is what the 18-point star looks like. Okay, now that the star is glued and dried, we have to do one last thing. If you want to hang this up, I mean, you can just leave this as a piece of decoration on your countertop if you prefer, but we are going to put a thread through this. So you can either use white if you have it, or maybe a matching color. I'm gonna go with blue for this. And all we're going to do is just thread this through. And I've got a whole bunch of weird tools here. I've got this little thing here which helps me put it through my thread into my needle, but I'm going to use it for my yarn instead. Alright, so I've got this through here. And now I'm going to attach this to my needle if I can. And now this is all going to go through my, just going to poke this through my star. And I'm going to pull this all through. And now I'm going to have this ready to hang up. And now this is ready to go. And we're going to do the same thing for all of the other stars that we have as well. Hooray! We finished our 8-point Christmas stars. And as an added bonus, we have a 16-point Christmas star as well. I think maybe we went overboard on this one, but I really like the way that this one looks at the front. With this one is a bit different. So let me know which one you're going to make. Are you going to go 4, 8, or 16? Just a few things that I wanted to mention as well while I was making these stars. The first star that I made, you can notice here on the back and a little bit, you can see that there, you can see into the gaps here. if you don't like that gap there, you could put in a piece of paper, like a square, and cut it into that spot and glue it on before you're putting these together. The only problem that I find is that the cardstock that I buy, typically the packages only have 2 of the same sheet in each package. So that piece in there would be a different color than what I have here. So it might stand out even more, which I don't know if I really want to happen. And I don't mind it showing out like that at all. So I like this star a lot because 2 pieces of paper, super easy to make. I know I went overboard with this one, but I happen to have 4 sheets of this paper, so I was able to do that. And I thought it looked really neat from the front. So this can go somewhere as well. And I wouldn't worry about the dome shape. You can kind of see it a little bit more here, the dome shape where they're a little bit bowed out, more so than on this one where I tried to make it a little bit flatter, but it's not a huge difference and they both still work beautifully. So if you tried out this project, if you made the 4, 8, or 16 star, let me know in the comments below. And be sure to like and share this video if you found this craft helpful. And that's it. We made the 8-point 3D paper star. Hopefully you've enjoyed this craft as much as I have. Let me know in the comments below which one you made. Did you make the 4, the 8, or the 16-point star that we did today? Thanks so much for watching and happy crafting. Today on Catherine Learns Stuff, I'm going to walk you through how to make these 3D paper snowflakes. So let's jump in. In this tutorial, I'm going to walk you through using 3 different colors of paper, and I'm doing that on purpose so that you can see how we can fold our paper differently to maximize what we're using and sort of to change the shapes of our 3D stars, of our 3D snowflakes. So I'm going to try to keep everything organized. I'm going to try to go systematically through blue, purple, and yellow. Those aren't in order, but that's the way I'm going to try to keep the video organized so that every step will go blue, purple, yellow, so that you can see the different designs and techniques that we do through this. So hopefully this won't be too confusing, but I'm going to walk you through how to fold everything, cut it all out, and then make these beautiful snowflakes. I quickly want to go over the supplies that we need to make the 3D paper snowflakes. I've got 3 different types of paper that I'm going to use in this tutorial, and depending on how we fold them, we need anywhere between 9 and about 17 sheets. You can use fewer, and I'll show you how mine turned out and how I've changed them because I wasn't paying too much attention, but you will need a bunch of paper. I recommend a ruler, a paper cutter, and a scoring stylus, and then also you will need some glue. One thing that I did also use, I just used a piece of scrap cardstock for my stencils. I don't have that here, but that's the last thing that we'll need. Okay, so let's move over now and start to go over how we're folding our papers and what we're going to do to make these snowflakes. I'm starting off with my blue paper, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be cutting it lengthwise, and I want this to be cut at about 2.8 inches in width. So this will turn out to be 3 separate pieces. 2, 4, 6, 7. And I'm going to, just using my scoring stylus and my ruler, I'm going to score a line so that I know where to cut. 2, 4, 6, 7. And now I've got 3 sections, and I'm simply going to pull this through my paper cutter. Now it's okay if they're not exactly perfect in size because we're going to be measuring the folds so that they turn out nicely. And now that's going to give us 3 pieces of paper. And so what's going to happen next is that I'm going to, again using my pen and my scoring stylus, I'm going to measure out 2 lines, and I'm going to have my first line at about 0.8 inches, and then my next one is going to be about 1 1/8 of an inch. So that's going to be 2 lines here on this from the top and 2 lines from the bottom. Now I'm going to simply fold this. And I'm just going to run a bead of glue across the bottom here to hold this shut. And I've got my rib. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to do this, all of them is I'm going to fold this in half. So instead of having 1 rib, now I've got 2 ribs. So that's going to save me time later for cutting and gluing. For the purple paper, what I'm doing is I'm actually just going to be taking the 1 piece and folding it in half so that this can become 2 ribs of my snowflake. So I'm just going to cut this, fold this in half, and then use that as for my cut line. And then just quickly through my paper cutter. Now once I have my paper cut to the size that I want to be able to fold this into 3 pieces. So for this piece here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try and have the outside at 1 inch on both sides and a 2-inch piece in the center. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to just do this with my ruler here, and I'm going to measure this out on my table here, and then just score this through, and then 2, 4, and then like so, and that's the size that I want. And I'm going to quickly fold this along my score line. And that's then complete. And now all I need to do is glue this piece together along this spot right here. And my purple is completed. For my yellow piece of paper, I'm actually going to be cutting this in a different direction than the other pages. And I'm going to cut this one sort of this way as opposed to this way. This will make a smaller snowflake, but it will also allow me to have sort of a bit thicker pieces. And I want to be cutting these out at about 3.6 inches each. They don't need to all be perfect. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. That's not very right. 4, 6, 8. Okay, and that's ready there. And I'm going to, again, just cut this with my paper cutter. Now, similar to with the other pages, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure off my size here. And for this one, when I'm cutting this, I want my outside pieces to be about 0.9 inches and my inside is going to be about 1 3/4. Again, just folding on the score lines. And that's ready to go. Could have made this one a little bit thicker maybe, but it's good enough. Again, gluing it and then folding it in half. Now that we've got our papers cut and folded, we need to do the same thing to get a whole bunch of these. So with the blue, I ended up using 16 sheets of paper, but you can get away with 11. I'll show you how I did that. So you need 11 sheets of these. If you're doing purple, the sizes for purple, you can get away with 8 pieces of paper for this to cut and fold. And with yellow, you'll need 7 pieces of paper for that. And I used a bit more in mine because I wasn't paying attention, and I'll show you how I did those and then how you can fix them if you have made too many. For each color of paper that I've cut out, I'm going to create a template so that I'll be able to draw on a design onto each one. So for the blue color, what I've done is I've cut out a piece of cardstock that's the same size as one of the blue folded ribs, and that is 1 1/8 inch by 5.5 inches in size. And all I'm going to do is with my pen and a ruler just draw on some triangles and rectangles and lines and just things that are easy to cut. I want to point out though, when I did this, I actually made my templates very complicated, and this resulted in a lot more time cutting, but you can actually make the templates very simple with just 1 or 2 cuts in it to make a beautiful snowflake as well. Once I've got my blue template finished, I'm going to cut it out, and then I'm going to trace on the template onto one side of each of the ribs. And what I've done is I've actually added in a little marker at the bottom of my template, labeling it FB for front bottom, so that I know to always place it on the front bottom of each rib so that each piece gets cut out the same way. Once all of my pieces are traced out, then I'm going to cut them out just the same way that I cut out the template. The next template that I've got is the purple template, and the size for that is 2 inches by 5.5 inches. And I do the same process for the purple as I did for the blue, except I just have a different design on the purple. And again, I'm going to point out that the more complicated the design, the longer it's going to take to cut, and the more complicated your snowflake will look. Finally, with the yellow paper, my template is a size of 1 3/4 inch by 4 1/4 inch. Now, if you are using different paper or you've created a different size to cut out your snowflake with, you'll need to make sure that the template that you use is the same size as your ribs of your snowflake. So that can change depending on what you're doing, but the sizes that of paper that I've used, these will be the templates that we need. So I'm going to quickly cut out all of my papers for the blue, the purple, and the yellow, and then we're going to start to assemble this. All right, so now that we've got all of our pieces cut out, the fun begins. We are going to start by gluing all of these together. So when we initially made the designs, we've listed them all with a FB on the bottom so that we know which way our ribs are supposed to be facing. So we want to make sure that they're lined up. I find that this is helpful to make the assembly go faster. Then the next thing that we want to do is we're going to start to glue the insides of the ribs together so that the fold of each piece is glued together. And I'm going to do this systematically, one piece at a time. So I'm going to glue the rib to itself, but only the middle piece in between the fold. And then I'm going to grab the next piece and glue it on top. And I'm going to do this all the way until I've used up all of my pieces of paper. Now, when I initially started this out, I didn't know how many I needed. I did some research online and everyone said 12 was the magic number. 12 is not the magic number, at least not with this size. So I ended up using 16 pieces of paper and each paper had 3. That's how I did this. So I did the same concept with the purple. And again, I just had to cut out a whole bunch of purple pieces that I needed, not knowing how many I wanted. And I just kept gluing them all together. So I ended up using 11 sheets of paper. So 22 sets of ribs for the purple. And then I did the same thing for the yellow as well. And the yellow, I used 11 sheets of paper, but I could have gotten away with 7. Once everything is glued together for the middle part and the one piece to the next, it's going to be time to start to glue this together. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, this part's really tricky. I found that when I tried to pull them together, the whole thing would fly out of my hands and sort of fly across the room. So I found that using a pencil in each rib to sort of help hold them together helped. Also, what I found was since I had a lot of surplus ribs in my snowflakes, it gave me the ability to hold on to the snowflake better and squish it together better. All I did was apply a bead of glue along the center of the rib and I pulled the first and last pieces together and tried to hold them in place. For most of these, for the blue, the purple, and the yellow, they flew across the room when I tried to do it the first time. It probably took me 6 or 7 tries to get them to glue together properly. So just keep that in mind. The last gluing is not as simple as it seems. Alright, so it's time to go over some tips and tricks that I learned while making these 3D paper snowflakes. The one thing that I did in this video is I've made all of my snowflakes the same size, so all of the ribs for each snowflake are the same. But you can actually change the size when you are making these. So I did similar snowflakes, but I did it with a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock, and instead of folding the ribs in half, I folded it so that one side was 7 inches and one side was 5 inches. This gave the snowflake a bit more of an up and down look, so maybe more like a star. So that's something else that you can do with those as well. You can also do several big ones and several small ones just to give the snowflake a different shape and different sizes and different appearances. So another thing that I talked about in my video is that when I was making these, I wasn't really sure how many ribs I needed to make my snowflakes look perfect. And so I just sort of cut out a whole lot of ribs and then I glued them all together and then I glued my snowflake together. But after the fact, I realized there was probably way too many. So what you can do if you come up to this problem is that if you have it already glued together and you realize that there's too much, you can cut a few of them out. So simply just pulling the ribs closer together to see how many you actually need. When you're pulling the ribs together to see how many you can actually remove, just pay attention to how the snowflake is reacting. If it starts to fold in on itself and turn into a cone, that means you're pulling out too many of the ribs and you won't be able to glue this back together. Also, one thing that I found with this project is that I've done this for Christmas, but you can use these for birthday parties or any other sort of event you have, just by changing the colors that you use. And there you have it. Your 3D paper snowflakes are complete. So I hope you've enjoyed this craft. If you have any questions or comments or any suggestions on how to make this better, please let me know. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Today on Catherine Learns Stuff, I'm going to walk you through how to make this cute snowflake Christmas garland. So let's jump in. So the other day we were doing our Christmas tree and we decided not to use our standard Christmas garland that we've got, and I was going to design some new stuff to make our tree look different this year. And I went ahead and designed some snowflakes to put up as Christmas garland. If you go to my website, catherinelearnstuff.com/snowflake Christmas garland, you can sign up for my newsletter by scrolling down a little bit into the webpage and sign up here for my newsletter. And I'll send you a copy of my snowflakes, but you don't need to use my snowflakes if you don't want to. You can find any other ones online. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Cricut Design Space with the file that you would have downloaded. And I've got it already here on my desktop for Cricut Design Space. But if you don't have it, all you'll need to do is select the upload button and go find it from wherever you downloaded the file that I sent you. So we're going to select the file and we're going to click Add to Canvas. Now when you pull this into your canvas, it's going to come out most likely very large. What you want to do before you change anything is we're going to select this Ungroup button. And now all of our pieces have been ungrouped. And we're going to select somewhere on our screen to unselect everything. And I'm going to go and select everything one more time, and I'm going to select Arrange, and I'm going to center it vertically and horizontally, sort of like so. Now the size is slightly better, but not much. So you'll see mine's turning out, it's just over 16 inches. So what I want to do is for this one, I'm going to change it to be 3 inches in size. And I'm going to zoom in, so I've got these pieces here. Now each piece is a snowflake with an outline, and there's 4 different snowflakes. So there's 2 with 6 and 2 with 5 arms each, and they're just a little bit different designs, and they all have sort of a hole here in the middle. Now, depending on how many snowflakes you want in your Christmas garland, you're just going to need to select this whole set or just one of them and duplicate them as many times as you would like so that you can have as many pieces of snowflake on your garland as you would like. Now, I've made these to be about 3 inches in height based off of having them all sort of set up together. You can make them bigger or smaller. Just keep in mind the smaller you make them, the smaller this hole is going to be for where you put your ribbon through later. So don't make them too small because that hole is going to become really hard to put ribbon through it or even string through it. So once you're happy with the size, all you need to do is select Make and then meet me at my workstation and we'll continue from there. For my snowflake garland, all I need is some white and blue paper, some blue ribbon, and some crafting glue. So I'm going to put this through my Cricut and get it all cut out, and we'll come back to assemble this. So I've cut out my 4 snowflake designs. I've got the 6, the 5, the 6, and the 5 with the circles and without them. And I think I've gone ahead and overcomplicated this. I probably should have just used 1 snowflake to keep things simple, but I haven't. I've done 4. So I've lined them up in the matching sets, and you'll notice the snowflakes that have circles on the white outlines, and the ones that are straight lines have less of a circle and more just like a bubble. And then also I've already pre-made holes into the snowflakes so that you can hang them onto ribbon, and you'll notice the corresponding edge that goes with the snowflake where the hole is missing a portion. So this one here with the circles on the edges is missing that circle. This one here that doesn't have the circles, it's just straight lines, you'll notice that the snowflake here is just a little bit short at the edge there. If you happen to glue it on wrong, that's okay too. You can always just cut that piece out or leave it in and pop it through the hole. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue on each piece individually onto their respective pieces so that we've got a blue and white snowflake. So bear with me as I do all the gluing. These snowflakes are symmetric, so even if you happen to glue it the wrong way, so long as you've got the edges sort of lined up, the 5s will line up with the 5s in any direction. Okay, so now I'm just going to let these dry for a moment, and I'm quickly going to get my ribbon ready for this activity. Now that my snowflakes have dried, I'm going to start placing them onto my ribbon. But what I want to do before I do that is I want to have a good idea of how far apart they should be. So from the way that I've got these sized, I'm looking at having them about 5 inches apart from each other. And since I've got 8 of these, I'm going to want about 45-50 inches of ribbon. That way I've got an ability to have 5 inches in between each snowflake, and I'll still have some ribbon on the left and right side of the garland to have it either just float on my Christmas tree or to attach to a branch or something that we'd like to tie it onto. So I'm going to quickly measure out my ribbon, and then I'm going to cut it and start to pull it through. So now that I've got my ribbon done, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to feed it through all of the holes on my snowflakes one at a time, but I'm just going to do them sort of all one at a time but all together so that they're all on the ribbon before I start to put them into place. And since my ribbon is already fraying, I'm just going to do a little bit of a tape job here to make it flat for me so that I can easily put it through my snowflakes. Now that all of my snowflakes are through the design, through my ribbon, I want to space them about 5 inches apart from each other. So I'm just going to use my mat here to measure for me. And I kind of want to space them, have them facing forwards, like that. Now the ribbon that I'm using is 1/2 inch in thickness, and my holes are about 3/16, so they're tight enough to hold my ribbon into place, my snowflakes into place on the ribbon. But if I want to make sure that they stay secure and don't move around when I'm moving them around on my tree or just putting them anywhere in my decorations, I can just put a little dab of glue on the back side to hold it in place. And that's what I'm going to do with my glue gun, which I've got heating up here, but this one doesn't look like it's right. Okay. So I'm just going to do a little dab of glue at the back here with the ribbon to help hold it in place. And I'm going to get myself stuck to it. Now my snowflake garland is ready to be hung up on my tree or on any of my Christmas decorations that I would like. So let's go put it over there. And there you have it. Your snowflake Christmas garland is complete. If you've enjoyed making this Christmas garland, I've also done a very similar project for Christmas snowflake curtains. This uses the same design. I've simply left a link here to that video so that you can learn how to make the Christmas curtains there instead. Today on Catherine Learns Stuff, I'm going to walk you through how to make these Santa's Village directional signs. So let's jump in. Before I start talking about how to assemble this project, I wanted to quickly go over something that I do in this video. This video, I go over how to make this Santa's Village directional signs that I've created, and you can get a copy of that file at my shop. But I've also made a video on how you can actually make this design by yourself in Cricut Design Space for free using all of the free features that are available there. And I left a link for that video below and possibly here as well. So we'll see if that works out. So I'm going to talk about how to make this using the file that I've created, but the assembly for this is the same with the file that I've created as it is with the file that you can create. It's just that my file is slightly different than what you get in Cricut Design Space. So let's start this project. So I quickly wanted to go over the supplies that we'll need to make this craft. If you're using 12 by 12 sheets of cardstock, you'll need 1 piece of yellow, 2 red, 1 white, and 2 green. If you want to use other sizes, you'll need more, but that's the size to get this done on 12 by 12s. You'll also need some glue and some double-sided foam tape. The last thing that you will possibly need, depending on how you want to attach this to your wall, is you can either use ribbon or you can use 3M command strips on each individual piece. Now, if you're like me and you like to use glitter, instead of using just regular cardstock, you can use glitter cardstock in place of the regular cardstock. So I've left a link below to a video of how to cut cardstock successfully. So make sure you take a look at that if you're going to be working with cardstock, with glitter cardstock, I mean. And I've also left a link for all the supplies that I've used here in the description below in case you want to use the same products that I have. Okay, so let's jump over to our computers and quickly get this file ready for cutting. So I wanted to quickly walk you through how to use the file that I've created for this Santa's Village directional signs. And what we need to do is once you've got the file saved on your computer, you're just going to simply upload it to your desktop. You're going to upload it to your Cricut design space. You can simply select the upload image button, and then you can click and drag the button. Click and drag the file into your design space box here, or you can browse and find the file where you've saved it. I've already uploaded the file, so I'm just going to select it here and I'm going to add it to my canvas. There's not very much that needs to be done with this file. Just want to point out a few things for you. Everything is color coordinated, so all the greens are the same greens, all the yellows are the same yellows, all the reds are the same reds. If you want to change them, no issues, knock yourself out. I just want to point out though that right now the size of this is 8 inches height, 8 inches in height and 5 inches in width. If you want to change this, depending on what size paper you're using, I suggest you leave the lock on and you change this. I'm going to change this to like 10, and it's a little bit off because these candy canes here are pushing out the size, but this will give you a good size to create it on your cardstock. And so you can ungroup this if you'd like, and then you can change colors or you can change sizes. But like this is a good size. You can, go and make these all 10 inches in height, in length, so that they're just a little bit longer. This one here, I'm going to exclude my candy canes, and I'm just going to change that, and you've got your candy canes here. And the same with these ones. Now I'm going to be using 12 by 12 cardstock most likely for this. So I could actually go all the way up to 11.5 inches because that's sort of the biggest size that you can cut on your Cricut. So that'll give you a nicer size for your designs. So once you've got your sizes figured out, 10, 11.5 are good sizes for these. This is all ready to be cut out. So you simply need to select make it. I'm not going to save. So I'm going to cut these out and I will meet you at my workstation so that we can assemble this. Before we get started putting this together, I quickly wanted to just go over the pieces that we should have after we've cut everything out with our Cricuts. So we've got the North Pole phrase I've got it in yellow, white, green, and red, so it's got a bunch of backgrounds. I've got Reindeer Way with 2 backgrounds, Candy Cane Lane with 2 backgrounds, Santa's Workshop with 2 backgrounds, and Elf's Village with 2 backgrounds as well. Additionally, we should have 3 large green and 1 large red arrow, 4 white arrows, 3 medium red arrows, and 1 medium green arrow, and then a small, medium, and large red, white, and green rectangles for our North Pole. So now that we have all of our pieces, it's time to start assembling this. I'm going to start off by assembling the arrows, and you have 2 options when you're doing this. You can either just glue them on, so you could take the green and the red and then the white and glue them on together if you'd like, or you can actually use foam tape to elevate them. So for the arrows, I'm going to be using just glue, but when I get to the letters, I'll be using foam tape to give them some more depth. And simply using my glue, I'm going to glue on the back side of the page and place it onto the top side. Now the glue that I'm using dries clearly, so if it's not perfectly aligned and I need to move it around, that's not an issue. I can just do that. Now I've prearranged these all so that they're quick to glue and I don't need to fumble finding all the pieces. So that one's done, and I'm going to continue on with the rest of them. Okay, so now that all of my arrows are complete, I'm going to quickly start to assemble the letters. So North Pole has the most number of layers just because I really wanted it to stand out, so that this is going to be sort of the top of our sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the North Pole in yellow onto the white so that I don't have the loose letters. And then I'm also going to glue the white onto the green, but then I'm going to use foam tape for the next layers. So I'm going to grab my tweezers for working with this because I find it's easier to work with the tweezers when I've got letters to use. I'm going to gently place this down. And I'm going to do the same thing for pole. My glue's a little bit runny today, so I'm just going to dab off this surplus here. Now this glue dries clear, so it shouldn't show up when it's done. It's just, today it seems to be very running. And I'm going to glue this onto the North Pole as well. And now that part's ready. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put foam tape onto the back of these and put them onto my red background. Now the North Pole goes onto this one here, and so what I'm going to do again is I'm going to use more foam tape to elevate this just a bit more to give this some more depth. Next I'm going to work on Santa's Workshop because that's the next one in my list, and I'm going to continue just by gluing, and I'm just going to continue by gluing this down just the same way I did last time. Okay, and then Santa's Workshop had the red, Santa's Workshop had the red and the green. So this is going to go onto the red green one, and I'm going to have it pointing in this direction. You can have them pointing in any direction that you would like. And this time here again, I'm going to use foam tape for these bits to elevate this. Now I like to use lots of foam tape. You can use little, the choice is yours. And now I'm just going to place this on top. And there's Santa's Workshop. So now I'm going to repeat this process for all the remaining letters, but I'm going to fast forward through this so that you don't have to watch all the details. Okay, so now we have all of our Santa Workshop signs done, and there's some options that we have for putting this up onto the wall. So what you can do is you can use ribbon and attach them all together in a straight line, which I'll show you in a moment, or you can just leave them like they are, like this, and then use some command strips to tape them onto a wall. So I'm going to attach them all in on a ribbon, with a ribbon, and I'm going to kind of go left, right with them so that they go in each direction, and just like this. So I'm quickly going to grab some ribbon, and I'm going to go from the ribbon all the way up and over like this, and I think I'm going to use some green ribbon because I have lots of that. So when using ribbon, I don't recommend you do what I do and have it fall all over the place, but you want to have one ribbon, enough ribbon on one side to go this way, a little bit surplus to flip over the top of your North Pole like that, and then another length of ribbon kind of going down. And my ribbon has completely come unraveled, so it's not very good. So as I was saying, you want the ribbon to be long enough, to go up and down on both sides, and then have some surplus so that you can hang this. Now I'm going to go over how to do this so that these signs are all the same distance away from each other when we're gluing them so that they don't kind of go all wonky. Now I'm going to attach the ribbon to my signs with a glue gun just because I find that glue holds this ribbon better than just regular crafting glue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out my painting tape because this doesn't stick to my paper, and I'm actually going to tape on each piece sort of straight in a line here so that they're not going to move on me. Now you can either tape on this side or on the back side just so that they are straight. Now I'm going to do it on the front side and then just in a few spots so that I can tape them straight and have them not moving around because I don't want things moving around on me. Now my table's got lines on it, so it makes it a little bit easier for me to do this. And I want them sort of being close to each other, so maybe 2 or 3 squares apart. just so that it's sort of symmetric. So whatever distance you decide to use, you should try to use that same distance on all of them. So now that I've got these all 3 squares apart, and I've tried to line them up so that they're roughly in the same spots going this way and this way. This one's a little bit off. This one needs to be moved up a little bit this way. I'm going to fold my ribbon in half so that I know where the top is. And that's going to be kind of where I'm going to put a fold into it so that I know where the top is. And now my glue gun is hot. So I'm going to dab glue on to my back here. And I'm going to tape this down right about here. And now I'm going to squish this down. And I'm going to put glue in these spots here. And I'm actually going to move these two quickly because I want them to be a little bit more color coordinated. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing here. All right, and now I'm just gonna let the glue dry. Okay, and then you can leave the extra ribbon here. I'm gonna cut it off because I don't like the way that it looks. And since I glued sort of in the center here, I can cut this off so that it doesn't show up on the back side. All right. Oops. Now our sign is ready to be hung up on the wall. And there you have it. Your Santa's Village directional signs are complete. I hope you've enjoyed this craft as much as I have. If you tried this out, let me know how it turned out in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy crafting!